Hello, this is Dave again. We've got another game for us. This will be a SlavDefense. The ECO code is D15. This game is played between Pia Cramling and D. Padilla. This was played in the Osuna Open in 1992. The theme of our game will be poor development. For those of you who are not familiar with Pia Cramling, she is a female player from Sweden. She was the darling of female chess when she first came up in the 1980s. She had played Garry Kasparov in one of the under 20 or under 16 championships that they periodically play in Europe every year. She did play him to a draw, so she is a very strong player. Then and now she, I believe, is a grandmaster. I could be wrong about that. If she's not a grandmaster, I know she is an international master. She recently played in the qualifying rounds for the Women's World Championship and did not qualify. But she's a very strong player, very good player, and I think by watching this game you'll see how she very easily dominated her opponent. So let's get started. The game opens with D4, D5, Knight to F3, Knight to F6, and C4, Queen's Gambit, C6, Knight to C3, and Bishop to F5. This actually turns into a SlavDefense. The next move is C takes D5 and C takes D5. By these pawn captures, White has determined the pawn structure for the game. They're symmetrical. Both sides have 2 pawns on the queen side and 5 pawns on the king side. The game continues with Queen to B3. White puts pressure on the D5 and B7 pawns. Black defends the B7 pawn by pushing it to B6, and now White plays Bishop to F4. The bishop takes control of this diagonal. Very important square is the C7 square. This may be an entry point for a white rook later in the game or another piece. So this bishop's position on F4 is very important, very controlling. The next move of the game was E6, opening up the diagonal for the dark squared bishop for black. Next is E3, and now A5. White now begins a combination to take over the light squares on the queen side. He plays Bishop takes B8, removing the defender of C6 and the D7 squares. Here. Next move is Rook takes B8, and now Bishop to B5 check. Black has a choice of either blocking with the queen, which of course would be a tremendous error. He would lose his queen. He could play King to E7 or block it with his knight, which he did in the game with Knight to B7. White now plays Knight to E5, adding to the pressure against this E7 knight with his bishop and knight. Black defends with his rook to B7. White plays rook to C1, taking over control of this C file. Black plays bishop to B4, finishing his development, hoping he can somehow castle. And now White plays queen to A4, which continues to add the pressure against D7. And at this point, Black will be unable to castle since it would lose a piece. As you can see, White has complete control over the light squares. He's got a lot of pressure against Black, and now, like I said, Black is unable to castle. So Black has to make a choice here, and the choice he makes is to play F6, attacking the knight, and he's going to force a bunch of exchanges here. If White does not exchange, the Black king will be able to escape by simply bringing his rook from F8 to F7, and then of course he would have enough defenders with the knight, and then he could walk his king over to, for example, G8. But White's not going to allow Black to do this. He immediately starts the exchanges, and he plays Knight takes D7. Black plays Rook takes D7. His only way to regain the piece. Of course, he's going to lose the exchange in the next few moves here. White plays A3, Bishop retreats to d6. White castles. Of course, white's in no hurry to retake this rook because there's no need to. The rook's not going to go anywhere until the black king moves. And of course, that's exactly what black's next move is. He plays king to e7, moving his king out of the pin. So white obliges, takes as the rook, bishop takes d7. Black plays queen takes d7, and white plays queen takes d7, and now king takes d7. The exchanges are made, and now white is up the exchange, and he has control of the c-file. Let's see how white continues his dominance of the light squares and finishes the game off to her advantage. The next move of the game is knight to a4. She attacks the b4 pawn, I'm sorry, the b6 pawn with her knight. Black plays rook to b8, defending the pawn. White plays rook to c3, and now b5. Black chases the knight away, or actually chases him to a better square, which is knight to c5 with check. Black plays bishop takes c5, and white takes with his rook. Rook takes c5. Now someone might say, wow, why don't we play d takes c5 and giving white a passed pawn? But let's see what happens if white, instead of capturing with the rook, would take with this pawn. It would be d takes c5. And this is a mistake. Yes, white has a passed pawn, but it's easily blocked, and white will no longer have the open file for his rook. All black has to do is play king to c6, pawn is stopped, and white's advantage has diminished tremendously. So the correct move was, of course, the game move, which was rook takes c5. And let's go back to the game moves. Next, black plays bishop to d3, trying to make his bishop more active on the side of the board where the play is, which is the queen side. White plays rook at f to c1. Of course, the rook was under attack, but actually moves to a better square, plays to the c file. Now, black plays rook to b7. Black is trying to reposition his pieces a little bit. Next is b3, and white hopes to prevent black from moving this bishop to c4, which would close the c file. The next move, which would really cramp white's game for a while. But, black finds a solution to this problem, and he plays a4, forcing the exchange of some pawns. White could push the pawn forward, but of course, if he did so, then the bishop would drop right into c4, the file's closed, and white's advantage would slowly disappear. Next is pawn takes a4, b takes a4, and now rook to a5, attacking the pawn at a4. Black defends with bishop to b5, and now rook to b1. The bishop is now pinned to the rook, so black has to make sure that if an exchange is made, or if the bishop moves, he must have his king or some other piece available to defend this rook, otherwise he would drop it. And of course, black plays king to c6. White can't really do much more on the queen side. He's got both his rooks in play. He's got all the pressure he needs. And he now needs to start playing on the king side, bringing his king side pawns up and bringing his king over to help out on the queen side. So the next move is f3. Black plays e5. King to f2. Like I said, white wants to bring this king over to the queen side and assist in his play there. Next comes e takes d4, e takes d4, just more exchanges. h6, f4, f5. The f pawns are now blocking each other. Neither one has any place to go. White plays h4. This move makes it more difficult for black to advance this g pawn. Puts a little bit of a bind here on the king side with the pawns. Next, black plays g6, And now rook to b2. Both sides are just trying to shuffle their pieces around, trying to get a little bit better piece placement, a little better king placement, and it's now going to just be a matter of who runs out of moves before the other one gets a game-winning advantage here. Next comes h5. Now the pawns on the king side are locked in place. Black cannot advance his g-pawn, because if he does so, white will capture, for example, with h-pawn, and now he's a king side pass pawn, and that will double or maybe even triple his disadvantage. And of course, white should very easily win with a pass pawn on the king side, and black's piece is tied up on the queen side. Next, white plays rook to b1, rook to b8, and when I first saw this, I thought this was a bad move. Of course, it leaves the rook undefended, but at this point, really, black is really in a bad position. He really doesn't have many moves, and what he's looking for here is some exchanges. I thought a better move would have been, for example, rook to b6, and then white would play rook to a7, for example, bishop to a6, rook takes b6, king takes b6, and now rook to g7. And even with possibly a better move where black protected his rook, he's now going to lose all of his king side pawns, and it'll be a very easy, simple win for white. But back to the game move. Black had played rook to b8. He wants to be able to protect those king side pawns. It's just a Hobson's choice here. He's got to make a move, and he tries to make a good move, but like I said, in this position, white really dominates, and any move by black was really going to deteriorate his position. The next move is rook takes a4, taking advantage of the undefended rook at b8, and he wins another pawn. Black accepts this, and he plays rook to e8, trying to take advantage of the open e file, possibly dropping this rook to e4, attacking the separated and weak d pawn, and possibly get some play here on the king side. So he gave up a pawn to try to activate his rook. The next move by white is rook at a to b4, attacking the bishop, possibly trying to win it. And now black plays bishop to c4. On the surface, this looks like a very good move. It prevents the capture of the bishop, but this is actually the losing move of the game. Black actually walks into a mate, and it works this way. White plays rook to b7, cutting off the retreat of any moves of the king on the 7th rank. He now plays, and in fact in the game, black resigned at this point, but let me show you how the game could have progressed. And this is Fritz's evaluation of his moves. Next is rook to e2, because black knows mate's coming. The king to f3, bishop to b3. Really, it's the only move. Rook at 1 takes b3, rook to b2, and like I said, computers, when they know there's mate there, they will throw all the material out there. But just to show you how the mate actually works, I want to continue this out. Rook takes b2, king to d6, and now rook at 2 to b6 is checkmate. And if you go back to this move, like I said, where black had played bishop to c4, thinking that he has saved his bishop, the move rook at b7 sealed black's fate, cutting off any retreat that black had hoped to have, possibly here on his 7th rank. And with the pawn at d4, it also limits where the black king could go on the 5th rank. So anyway, that was the game. I think Pia Cramling showed her strength there. She really dominated this game. She took advantage of black's poor development. Black did not protect those light squares after the exchange of the bishop for the knight on b8. White took complete control of the light squares and dominated the game. And I think you could see that this was a well-played game by white. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I enjoy bringing it to you. Thank you very much.